I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'm not even supposed to be here today! Oh, fuck you!
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal. Remember, I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fuck me in the ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this review is going to be for, at the time this was recorded, the weekend's newest release from the world of John Wick, Ballerina, directed by Len Wiseman, who has directed films like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, some of the Bourne movies, and, well, has also directed Edge of Tomorrow, which a film from 2014 that I definitely liked. So, what is the plot of Ballerina? Well, this is a film that takes place between the events of John Wick 3 and John Wick 4, and it's about an assassin that was teased and hinted in the third film, was trained in the traditions of Ruska Roman organization, aka the ballerina kind of training, and sets out to seek revenge after her father's death. So, as for my reaction, well, now yeah, technically speaking, I did kind of have my John Wick send-off of John Wick 4 2 years ago, but there was one spin-off that I was willing to check out, since this is also, well, this is set between the events of 3 and 4. It's actually somewhat in a way set before the events of 4, and somewhat-ish after the events of 3. And well, and also because, well, this was also Lance Reddick's final portrayal of the character Charon, before he had died around the time John Wick 4 came out. And also, John Wick was making an appearance in this one. So yeah, I saw the film after the parade in my area today, and how was this movie? Well, I would say, was it as great as the John Wick movies? Well, maybe not, if I'm going to be honest. It was good, though. Definitely good, but I wouldn't say it's as good as any of the 4 John Wick movies. Well, I have to say, well, I likely won't be checking out the other spin-offs because this is the last film of the series I am watching. But it is definitely the weakest of the series, though. But it's still good. That's what I will say. I'd say the stuff that does make it worth it are the action sequences, the cameo appearances, especially John Wick's at the very end. I'll get to that a little bit later. That's what makes the movie good. The villain of the runtime of the film, sluggish a bit, but I'll get to the back quads later. So, how was the film made? Well, Lionsgate had acquired a spec script from Hayton for the film in 2017, and it was contributing to the final script for Parabellum, and served as the lead writer for Chapter 4. Then in October 2019, months after Chapter 3 had released, and around the time 3 had released on Blu-ray, Len Wiseman was hired as director, but the series creator Chad Stahelski was going to still be producer by May 2020, and Ballerina was announced in April 2022, a year before John Wick 4 had come out, with Ana de Armas replacing original actress at the time, Yudi Felon, who was portraying the character in Parabellum, in the lead role. So, by that December, the rest of the cast got rounded out, and filming began soon after, and taking place in Stasiska, Prague, and some action sequences were shot starting February 2024 last year. And then, of course, after the film was officially shot and advertised, Ballerina was going to be released on June 6, 2025, and received positive reviews from critics, but like I have said, it did receive lower reviews than the other 4 films. And opening night, it made about $10 million. Well, I guess that's to be expected, to be honest. Because, well, to be fair, this ballerina character, it doesn't really sell as much as somebody like John Wick, in a way, so I can see the lower box office results, to be fair. And well, and also, like, another thing about it, another thing to deal with kind of the only 10 million opening night is, well, also, now, John Wick 4 did get critical acclaim. Yes, that is true. And yeah, I did love John Wick 4, but there were also some fans of the franchise who hated it, in a way, and so, and I can see where they're coming from on some stuff, but there were some that were not satisfied with the film. So, they probably decided, that probably just killed any interest for them in continuing the series, and because originally we were supposed to get 5 films, but obviously because of, like, Keanu Reeves is aging, they had to change it to just 4 films in a way, but they're rumored to be doing a 5th one still, but in a way, like, I think 4 was going to be a 2-part movie, but problems then led it to have to be changed to 1 film. I still love the film, but there were fans who just didn't. So, they just some likely felt that, yeah, we didn't like that. I don't think we need to see what else is next for this series, to be honest, if it's going to go this route. So, yeah, I can see why some weren't too keen on checking this out. Now, let's get on with Ballerina. What makes Ballerina enjoyable? So, the thing I was the most excited about before seeing this was to obviously see Wick again in a brief appearance and see the events that, and likely see what happened between the events of the 3rd film and the 4th film, but although, even if he wasn't really in the film, I think the movie would still ended up being as enjoyable as it was. I mean, the scenes with John Wick at the end are amazing, or there's like a brief little arch of footage like bit from the 3rd film, like when he's getting that tattoo from Angela Houston's character and being sent on that boat originally at the time to meet up with the elders to try to get his freedom at the time, but we all know how that went. But the ballerina scene is reenacted because the original actress did not come back. That's the thing. So, and I didn't mind Eve's character, like, at all. And I also did enjoy the scenes with Norman Reedus as Daniel Pine. And the amount of action sequences in the movie actually is still insane. There's still some insane action sequences. Like, there's action with a flamethrower. There's action in this whole cafeteria. Or, like, this cafeteria area. Like, every second of the movie, like, you do get more and more action without really being able to take a breather. So, yeah. You'll definitely get a lot of fighting and gunfight scenes. And, like, 3/4 of the film, like, this is a lot of the type of scenes. Like, it's what you would expect with something from the John Wick franchise. And now the quality is a little bit below the other 4 films. Like, they don't compare it to stuff like the whole glass room or any of the action scenes from 2 or the warehouse showdown or the scene where he takes down the 2 ninjas in chapter 3, but they're still enjoyable. Like, really, like, you could tell Ana de Armas did work pretty hard to be able to perform all these scenes. The movie still does. So yeah, it may be a little bit of a step down from the main series, but I think it still deserves a watch. Right there. It does have some problems, but it doesn't mean it's awful. It's still pretty enjoyable. I mean, I like that we do see some, like, stuff, like we see more of Angelica Houston's character like we saw in the 3rd film, and now I was wondering, like, how they were gonna build up to the events of 4 in a way, and what I will reveal is you don't really get much, like, planning or foreshadowing the events of 4, but I don't think you're meant to be honest. I mean, I don't think that was their intention. I mean, it's not like a prequel to chapter 4, it's just a side story that's set between them. Like, so if you're hoping to see, like, how the events of 4 get built up, or, like, maybe characters from 4 getting, like, hinted at, you're not going to get that here, because this is supposed to be a side story. It's not a prequel film. It's just a side story. Like, it just has some of the characters from the other films back. So yeah, and you do get a decent backstory of Eve. where tensions are aimed towards like as a consequence of her past as well. So how do we start? Well, our main protagonist, Eve Macaro, played by Ana de Armas, is the daughter of two assassins, is unnamed wife of Javier and Javier himself. Javier and Eve, they live in isolation because he had betrayed this cult that his wife had belonged to, and so that's how Eve's mom and older sister had died. Then of course an attack of the cult happens that night, and Javier manages to fend them off, but the Chancellor, the leader of the cult, played by Gabriel Byrne, he mortally wounds Javier, and Eve is left alone. Although to be fair, Javier does kind of in a way sacrifice himself before they can find and capture Eve as well. But then, of course, Eve is left alone, and Winston, the New York Continental owner, Ian McShane's character from the other films, takes her in. And then she gets brought to be recruited by the Resca Roma, which her father was associated with, and so within like the next 12 years, around this time, the events of John Wick 3 are kind of starting to happen. And Eve is being trained as this ballerina and as assassin for the Kikomura area under the eye of the director. And of course, she's able to protect her first war, this heiress named Kyla Park at a nightclub. In a little nightclub shootout that actually is pretty cool. With some cool cinematography. And so contracts then get carried out, but then the target gets killed, and Eve is able to take out this assassin that identifies as part of the cult, and so she asks information from the director about the cult. Blue wants to take revenge for her father's death, but the director tells her not to, because the cult does not really abide by rules at all. So, and she wants Eve not to pursue them either, as the Rome and the cult have made this prior truce. So, yeah. And of course, during this, bit, here, you do see some reenacted stuff from John Wick 3. This is your first appearance of John Wick. It's not just the ending. This is your other appearance you get at John Wick. Where he's pretty much going to Angelica Houston's character for a way out. And so he gets that tattoo branded on him. And he has to go to the desert to meet the elders, and then get this scene where he's talking to the ballerina that told him how he got out, and of course from chapter 3, except it's now reenacted by Ana de Armas. This time, and not the original actress, but yeah, it was nice to see this bit again. Now, guys, I haven't rewatched chapter 3 since 2 years ago when I was having to rewatch it for the review series for chapter 4, back when chapter 4 was about to come out. So I don't revisit everything all the time, but it's pretty much the drill. So yeah, you know the drill with any movie in this franchise. It's no breaks, and it's on-site with the action sequences. Ballerina does some slick stuff. It does lean hard to Eve, redefines what kind of means to be in her character's shoes. It doesn't really hold anything back. Well then, now, and it's kind of the thing though. Wick is known for gun, headshots, no motion, no wasted stuff, and built-in ammo. Eve, on the other hand, has kind of a different thing. Her combat style gets a little grittier, scrappier, and a little unconventional. Right there. So, and Eve takes this advice she gets to heart, but definitely not the way anybody would think. Her weapons are pretty unpredictable. You get fight scenes with grenades, you get fight scenes with flamethrowers, and no kill would look always the same. It's always this coarse, brutal ballet that she always does in a way to kill her foes. And her ability to step into the world of John Wick and make it kind of like her own little story was actually pretty impressive. And of course, the music's composer, of course, and all the other films in the series, they did the music as well, and it kind of really, and it still does feel in a way like a John Wick film, it's not really trying to be a main John Wick film. But the stunts are still good, and anything like all the other 4 films. And of course, I really like the scene with the flamethrower. I think the scene with the flamethrower, where she's throwing flamethrowers through tunnels and flamethrowers at her foes, and just one other foe's even dueling with a flamethrower here. That was very well done. And of course, some of the returning actors, got the late Lance Reddick in his final role, may he rest in peace. You got Norman Reedus playing her father. Got Ian McShane back as Winston for a brief appearance. Angelica Houston back from chapter 3. and Gabriel Byrne is our main villain, and they deliver successful performances. Right here, right here and now, Gabriel Byrne's character wasn't necessarily a strong villain per se, but he was not a bad villain. I will say he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. So eventually, after learning more of this whole truth and learning more of the cult, Eve then reunites with Winston at the Continental and informs of one cult member, Daniel Pine, had actually checked into the Continental at the Prague with this large bounty on his head. So Eve goes to Prague, where she discovers more cult members that are led by Lena, the Chancellor's right-hand woman, and wants someone to make a move on Pine. Eventually, Eve discovers Pine is there to escape from the cult with his daughter Ella, and so when the cult sees Eve did not kill Pine, then this causes Lena to immediately raise the bounty, and so Eve decides to help Pine fight off cult assassins that were looking to collect it, in order to save her daughter Ella. Because she can clearly see how it feels losing a parent, like having fear of losing a parent. So she's clearly doesn't want Ella to go for that fate as well. But then, however, Ella though gets captured and Pine is heavily wounded. Then the Continental staff takes out the rest of the cultists, and then Eve goes to this arms dealer named Frank for help, and how he helps her, he directs her to this area where the cult is residing in called Hallstatt, and so Eve after that goes to Hallstatt and discovers that the townspeople were included in the cult as all these assassins, and then of course, after a brief little bit of a fight where in this little cafe, the assassins then go after her, she goes through pretty much all of them. Then of course there's one where this waitress working at the place is actually clearly associated with them, and you do get a nice little fight scene in this kitchen where she locks the waitress and the corrupt waitress in this cooler for a little bit. Then after some more assassins get taken out, she emerges out again. Now before that, there's one bit of the fight scene I did not like, and that's the scene where they're both girls, both Eve and both this corrupt waitress are. These pile of dishes are near them, and they're each taking a plate each, smashing on their heads, repeatedly back and forth. Yeah, I will admit, that was kind of annoying. I'm not gonna lie. Now, yeah, the series is known for being over the top. There are some over the top bits of the series I do not like the scene in John Wick 3, where he got shot off the building and fell down the metal stairs. That's probably one scene from the third film I did not like. Well, also, there was chapter 4 where, during the scene where he fought Scott Adkins' character, where John Wick fell and hit that rail and somehow did not die from that. I wish that wasn't in there as well. Oh yeah, and there's also when he falls down the stairs for 5 minutes, which was just there to pad out the runtime. So yeah, this series is known for having some over the top stuff that I will admit I wish would just not be in the films. And now for this movie, you have the scene with the plates right there. So yeah, this basically felt like. It felt like a Family Guy episode. That bit in the fight, that literally felt like you were watching a Family Guy chicken fight episode. And that's definitely not a good thing, because I don't like Family Guy. Family Guy is awful. Oh yeah, but after she escapes the cafe, kills the rogue waitress, she keeps running to more assassins, but the problem is she then gets captured, gets brought to the Chancellor, who has discovered her affiliation with Ruska Roma. And of course, it turns out Pi was actually his son that actually betrayed the cult, and Ella is actually his granddaughter, so hence why he had snatched Ella, because he wanted Ella for himself. But Ella clearly does not like him, and clearly knows of her grandfather's crimes. But then Eve shares her story to the Chancellor, and then realizes her father's killer, that he was actually the guy who killed her father, and Lena was actually Eve's older sister and was alive all the time. So Eve does escape with Lena, and who tells that their father had escaped with only Eve because he feared Lena had already been blinded by the cult. Of course, well, just as her and Eve are finally reconnecting, though, the Chancellor then has his men attack them with grenades, and Lena unfortunately dies, but Eve escapes. So, unfortunately, before they can actually finally work together for the first time, and just as they're finally getting to meet each other, sadly, she's killed. Which honestly, that was also kind of wasted potential because once Eve finds out that Lena's actually her sister, like that could have been something interesting, like these two could have actually teamed up and stuff, like finally getting to know, like just as she finally gets to know her sister was alive, like these two could have teamed up in the finale. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't really work because you already have John Wick teaming up with her in the finale, but still though, I mean, I wish she didn't die too early. I really wish like she didn't die just as Eve found out that Lena was her sister. If you know what I'm saying. But yeah, the action scenes do deserve a shout out, minus the one with the plates. Like the action scenes, like they do feel fresh. Like they're not just trying to rinse, wash, and repeat the action scenes from the main 4 films. Like right here, like the fighting did actually feel sharp and have its own unique style, and I did appreciate they tried to have a different style with their different lead character. They weren't just trying to do the same like pencil stuff with this character because that would just be lazy. And kind of like with the first entry of the franchise, the story, yeah, it's about revenge. The first one's story was John getting revenge for the death of his dog. This one is our main Ballerina spin-off character getting revenge for the death of her dad. It is pretty simple, but with still a few great twists. Like, kind of much like the first one, where this time around, though, John Wick in the end, an interesting twist, though, becomes the protector when he was originally sent there to kill Eve. Kind of like what Willem Dafoe's character was in the first one. And yeah, like John's decision not to kill Eve are actually true to his character, because that's the thing, though. Even though like he was sent there to kill, like but she reminds him of the advice he told her in the third film, and so he decides to actually help team up and then make it look like the job is done. Right there. So the amount of training, choreography, and stunt work is actually pretty unbelievable, and how different the characters' fighting styles definitely are. There's still some good cinematography, there's still some good efficient editing, and the visual effects are great. It's like there are some kind of CGI bits I could tell were kind of didn't really look finished, like right there. I mean, there's one bit like where she's driving away after her job, but then another car of assassins crashes into her car, and you can kind of see the CGI there in a little bit. I also do love the locations they picked here. And of course, now, there are some viewers that do say the story is a little more so-so, and just a typical revenge story, but you gotta combine with the world building of the John Wick franchise, and branching out like new directions, and it's actually not revolving around the high table, like, so it's not too much of a light story, honestly, in my eyes. And with the 125-minute runtime, like, the action scenes still really carry. Like, it's what the John Wick films are kind of known for, the epic action sequences. Like, and we happen to be now familiar with the assassin world already, so we don't really need to have more world building. In a way, we already know this world in the series. We already saw this world get built in the first 3 movies, because, well, this was set before 4. And of course, like, a movie sometimes just needs to deliver what it promises. Solid action, interesting characters, engaging enough story to keep you along for the ride, and the film does actually do that. So after director has learned about Eve's actions, he then calls the Chancellor, and that ends their truce, but director does sure that Eve has immediately now gone rogue, has gone against her program, and so the director decides that she's going to send John Wick to take out Eve. And this was the part I was waiting for. This was the part I was actually waiting for the most. Like, this was the stuff I was excited to see. When I saw the trailers, like, this was what I kind of mostly came for. I mean, I did like some of the story. Like, I didn't mind Eve as a lead character, but the stuff, like, many other people were saying that they were They were just kind of interested in seeing like the scenes with John Wick. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, even I kind of too was. So she sends John Wick to kill Eve as a compromise for the Chancellor, and so Wick then arrives, where he finds and is about to fight and kill Eve. Wick tries to tell her to stop what she's doing, like during their fight scenes, like yeah, and of course and during their fight scenes he's still telling her to stop what she's doing. But Eve refuses, and Eve's pleading with him to let her go because she needs to act revenge. And so Wick then does feel sympathy for her because he knows like he's been the same path as her. So he spares her, and he decides that she's going to have till midnight to kill a Chancellor, or he's going to continue his orders from the direct, or he is going to continue his orders to kill her. So Eve then continues her fight, and so Wick does in secret fend off some cultists after his betrayal gets found out. Right there. And so the Chancellor does try to escape with Ella, but then Eve corners him, and of course, like you do get the epic fight scene with the flamethrowers. Like that was pretty cool. Like when you have one foe and her with these flamethrowers, and they're launching the flamethrowers at one another. Like that was awesome. That was my favorite action scene of the film. The scene with the flamethrowers and the scenes with the grenades, like when those were the best part, the action scenes of the film. I definitely loved the flamethrower. The flamethrowers was the best part of the movie. Like, was the best. That and like the scenes with John Wick, those were the best parts. So, the Chancellor tries to recruit her to be part of the cult's lineage for her mom, but Eve refuses that because she knows that he had killed her father and now had already killed her sister. So she kills him, rescues Ella, and so Wick, who had been aiding her in secret, tells the director of the Chancellor's death, and she asks, is she dead? He's dead. And then hangs up the phone, and he walks out. Obviously, because he has to go back into hiding, because remember, guys, he's still excommunicado. Especially even more excommunicado after the third one. And obviously, he's probably now in even more trouble now. Like, remember like in 4 where he was now like in much more trouble at the high table? Well, I think you could tell like this whole sequence, the high table probably found out about all this. And that's probably how he got in even more trouble in the 4th. How he probably got into even bigger trouble in that 4th one like you saw. Because he was technically sent there to kill Eve, but he chose not to, so that probably led to all those consequences in 4. So I guess that's kind of your build-up of 4 in a way. And of course, remember, he's still excommunicado in a way, and was still breaking the rules. So yeah, he's got to go back into hiding because assassins are still going to be looking for him. He's not got his freedom yet. This was back when he was still wanted. But yeah, she's relieved, but the director is relieved that they're preventing war. Now, you're wondering, how many scenes does John Wick appear in, Don? I'll tell you this. He's in like 4 to 5 scenes of the movie. He's in some of the reenacted footage of Chapter 3 around the first half of the film. And then he's in the finale. If you want to know which parts he appears in, those are the scenes he appears in. And if you just want to wait for the film to hit streaming, just to see those scenes, I guess you could just watch the reenacted footage scene, and then just skip to the finale. If you only want to see this film for Wick, if you only want to see the John Wick scenes, that's what you gotta watch. But it's still worth a watch. But if you're not interested in checking the film out, then you can just wait for the film to hit streaming, because of course, obviously, someone's gonna put it on streaming, obviously, and you could just skip to the end, skip to the climax or the finale. So, yeah. So, like, you do get some of the usual necessary shootouts, like the hand-to-hand scuffles and great hand-to-hand scuffles in the other films, but this movie even does continue to give us something new here, like the other films have done. Like, yeah, like with the grenades, the flamethrowers, like those are definitely the best action scenes of the movie, like I've said. one part of the climax is like, has Eve taken on an entire town of killers? Right there, like, yeah, that was kind of the bit with the dishes part that I did not like. And you can still see some of Chad Stahelski's touch that it still fell in the core films, like though some of it's not entirely quite there, but you can see some of it at times, and it is in a way still kind of a great addition. There. Alright. So, now we get on to how the movie ends. And how the movie ends is Ella gets reunited with Pine, who is recovering at the New York Continental, and him and Ella are reunited. And so, in a way, Eve has now kind of found some closure with her past, because even she was now able to prevent Ella from meeting the same fate she did. Like, now Ella can have her dad again, and now Ella and Pine can now live their life in privacy. Now, especially because knowing that Ella's kidnapper and Pine's attempted killer are now dead. Of course, the guy that killed Eve's father and sister, and of course mom, are all dead. Is also dead as well. But there is still some unhappy side of the ending. She defied the director's orders. So she's now incommunicado and now has a bounty contract on her head. And the last shot you see is her watching her roommate's performance of Swan Lake. And then, of course, she escapes because the bounty's been placed on her head. And that's the end of the movie. Eve succeeded in getting revenge on the Chancellor. She freed Ella with a little help in secret from John Wick. But she broke the truce between the cult and the Roma. And so she now has a $5 million contract on her head. And so it's more bittersweet. This series is never known for happy endings, but so you can kind of tell. I could kind of tell it wasn't really gonna end on a too happy note. I mean, the series ain't known for happy endings. But that's the end of the movie. And it was enjoyable. I didn't mind it. Maybe not one I'll revisit as much, because it is kind of my least favorite of the series as a whole. But it was not a bad side story. Now, here would be my bad qualms with the film. The plot of the movie is a little bit too simple. I feel like the plot should have been a little bit deeper, more interesting. And then maybe the plot could have worked a little bit better. There's times when our main character takes too much blows, but somehow just recovers in a few seconds. Like, especially the whole dishes thing, like with the whole plates being smashed between them, wouldn't both those girls be passed out dead? Like, that was one of the things I did not like about that scene. Like, you have too many dishes smashed in your head, you probably would be bleeding to death on the floor. But somehow there's no cuts on their heads from any of that. Yeah. Yeah, once again, the series is known for being unrealistic, but there's times when it does get a little bit too over the top. And sometimes the character comes off as a little too emotional to be too much of a, death angel. And the villain, he wasn't bad. He was pretty intriguing, but then his actions just become a little bit, don't have much explanation by the third act, and so it just kind of weakens the payoff when he's about to get his comeuppance, and it also does kind of rehash the same ending as John Wick 2, where I remember in John Wick 2, like, John had killed on high table grounds by then, and so he got declared excommunicado, and he now had a contract on his head. And Winston gave him a bit of a head start before he enacted the contract, and so that ended with Winston trying to flee New York, which led right into the opening scene of the third one, where it continued from there. It kind of does that again. Now, it doesn't rehash Eve running out of New York, but it just ends with Eve like watching a performance and then leaving the theater. And that's where it simply ends, though. But this time it's now incommunicado, not excommunicado. It's like, it feels like they're just trying to set up their own franchise. Because remember, guys, this was like 2 years ago when 4 was about to come out. They were announcing all this whole like spin-off multi-massive franchise in a way, like with about all these other characters, which I didn't have interest in watching. The only one I had interest in watching was this. I'm not going to check out any of the other spin-offs. I'm not going to check out the Kane and the Cure film because remember, guys, because I did not see the post-credit scene of 4. As soon as 4 ended, I left because I like to pretend that movie's the ending. That is where it entirely ends for me. I don't think John Wick needs to become something like Marvel or Fast and the Furious because they're especially do not need a 5th one either. But yeah, so this is the last one I watched. I've had my run. It was a fun franchise run, but all things that got to come to an end. I know some people were not satisfied with the 4th ending, but yeah, it sucks they killed him off at the end of 4, but it was really the only way out. To be fair, like if John Wick had lived, like what would he go back to? I mean, yeah, he had the Istanbul pub, but his house got destroyed in 2. Where else would he go? There wouldn't really be anywhere else for him to go. I mean, he's obviously doesn't want to go back near the Continental. And in a way, like, and honestly, when I think about it, if he had took down the High Table, I mean, what would really be achieved? There obviously would be more High Table followers that would come out that would keep coming after him. So it wouldn't have probably mattered by the end. I mean, and even that, like, the elder he kills in the beginning of 4 even said it best in that film. Even if you take down the High Table, he was still never gonna have any peace. So that's why I was kind of happy with the ending of 4 because that was kind of the only way out. Anyway, okay, sorry, I'm freezing for a second. But so yeah, other than the bad qualities, Ballerina was an enjoyable spin-off, but it's not something where you should expect anything too new. If you only want to see John Wick scenes, then probably just wait for someone to upload the film to streaming and just skip to the climax. If you just want to see those scenes. But if you really do want to watch the film, though, because you think it actually does look very intriguing, then definitely go watch it. So in the end, Ballerina, it may not be the best film of the series, but it is still kind of worth a buy-ish for John Wick fans. I want to see what happened between the events of 3 and 4, and once again some epic action sequences, and the last on-screen appearance of Lance Reddick. Anyways, that's it for my review of Ballerina. If you're running hungry Ballerina, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of the John Wick franchise, are intrigued to see a spin-off about a character who was teased in the 3rd one, and want to see what happened between that film and 4, then I would totally watch it by Ballerina for your collection for sure, no doubt. And if you're running hungry Ballerina, I'm going to give Ballerina a 7.5 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That officially wraps up my review for Ballerina. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys thought about Ballerina, whether you guys loved the movie or whether you were not a fan of the movie or did not care to go watch it. And until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.